definitely going to challenge you at the end of this service, and especially at the end of this series. What is a disciple? Because you hear that, you go, well, what is a disciple? That's such a church word. Like, it's a church word. It's Christianese, Brandon. Help me out. I need some help here. I just read it in the Bible. I don't know what it means. Well, disciple simply means to apprentice under someone. Because the way this happened in the first century was there was a rabbi, and Jesus was a rabbi. And the rabbi would come along, and they had a group of followers that would go with them, and the rabbi would teach and guide and direct. And in that, these disciples would become more like their rabbi. In fact, the rabbi was responsible for teaching the Old Testament law. And what they taught, they would teach to their disciples, and their disciples would kind of carry that on throughout time. And that's how that worked. And people would go through the process of becoming a rabbi, and then they would go, and they'd get disciples would want to follow them, and that's how that ends up happening. And so as a disciple, we just want to apprentice under Jesus this year. That means being more intentional than we have. Because if we're being honest, some of us, if we're just being honest, there's been gaps between us and the Lord, hasn't there? There's been times where there's been a gap between us and Jesus. And see, the reason why I love this imagery is because in the first century, a rabbi, the idea was that the rabbi would lead and the disciple would follow. And it was a physical illustration. They had a phrase that they would say when you got selected by your rabbi to be invited to come along is they would say, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. That you would follow him so closely, the gap would be so small between you and your rabbi, that the dust from his sandals would be kicked up on your outer garments. That you would be covered in the dust of your rabbi. So this year, this is what I want. This is the challenge that I want us all to be part of, is that we would be covered in the dust of our rabbi. That we would be covered in the dust of Jesus because we are following him so closely and learning from him and listening to what he has to say.